This week we'll be looking at the topic cell function and organization. So I believe it's a topic all of us are conversant with. So let's just look into this in details. Okay, if along the way in any of the slides you are not seeing the slide or you can't hear me, please just unmute your mic and inform me, okay? I'm not seeing the screen as I'm sharing my own screen. I'm not seeing the chat folder as I'm sharing my screen. Okay, so we are starting with introduction to the cell. Introduction to the cell. Okay, whenever you hear the cell, what comes to your mind? What is a cell? Not the kind of cell we see in prison houses. No. When we talk about the cell, we are talking about a unit, the smallest unit of life in its most basic definition. So a cell means what? The smallest unit of life in its basic definition. So we are talking about the smallest division of something, of an organism that has a what? Ability to live, to reproduce, to move about, to excrete, to perform all life characteristics. Okay, so that's what a cell is all about. So the cell is the basic unit of life. All living organisms are made up of cells. Cells carry out basic functions, the essential functions of life, like energy production, reproduction, and homeostasis. So there are two main types of cell, the prokaryotic cell and the eukaryotic cell. Okay, so since the cell is the basic unit of life, it means that every organism, no matter how complex or how small, from unicellular organism to multicellular organisms, to those existing in colonies or to those single living, all of them are composed of what? Cells. Now, cells must have the ability to do what? Perform life processes, those essential functions of life, something like energy production, reproduction, the ability to what? Give rise to another cell, either by division. They can also be what? Able to regulate their internal environment. That's homeostasis. Now, this regulation of internal environment can what? Be from as a result of response to stimuli, controlling what goes in and what comes out from the cell. As we'll be looking into this in details this evening. So, forms of cell organizations. Now, a cell can be what? Either free living, we call that unicellular organisms. Unicellular organisms are what? Single cell organisms. Something like amoeba, something like paramecium. There are single cell what? Organisms. They can live on their own, just one cell that can perform every vital processes it needs. Also, some cells can come together and aggregate to form what? Many cells. Now, these are called multicellular organisms. Some cells can come together now to what? Okay, now let's use an illustration for example. Let's say I myself now, I'm a single living cell. I can stay on my own. I can plant what I will eat. Let me say I have the expanse of land and time. I'll plant cassava here, plant pepper here, plant mango, plant every single thing I need. Now, and then I'll harvest it. Please, you have to just use your imagination here now. Let's say, okay, now I plant every single thing I'll be needing in this life. If I should need pawpaw, I have pawpaw too. If I should need cassava, I have everything to produce what? Cassava. If I want to eat garri, I have everything to do what? Eat garri. And I'll also be at the same time a doctor, a teacher, and everything all by myself. So, in other sense, I am lacking nothing that I need for what? To sustain my life. Now, in multicellular organisms, some cells come together and aggregate to perform it very well. Now, another group of cells will
Sir,
come
please, I
together
can't see your
to perform
screen.
another what?
I can't see
Function.
your slide.
Now, this is division of what? Labor. Now, all of them will now what? Complement each other. And then the organism will what? Live in spaces. Right? Now, for example, so now I've been trained to what? Be a doctor. Now I have someone else that is trained to be a lawyer. Another person trained to be a farmer. And when you come to agriculture, some are concentrating on what? Vegetable planting. Some are concentrating on what? Planting cassava and the rest. Now, everybody contributes to what? The farmer will bring food, the doctor will bring healing, the lawyer will bring what? Legal practices. And now make up what? A living system. Are you getting me? So this now becomes what? A complex organism. Now, since some cells can come together and bind form what? Cellular organisms. Now, we're looking at different levels of organizations of cells. Okay, so the slide I'm writing now, the both text read forms of cell organization.
I can see it now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Then. Okay, so now there are four what levels of cell organization. Okay, there are four levels of cellular what organization. Now, when let's say first of all, a cell can exist as a unicellular organism. That was what I was explaining at first. Now, when these cells come together and aggregate what their functions, when cells come together, they what make up what is called a tissue. They make up what is called a tissue. Now, examples of tissues you can see in your body is your what? Your liver. Sorry, that's an organ. Okay. Okay. Now, when liver tissues, okay, please just pay attention now. When cells come together, they make up what? A tissue. Now, aggregate of tissues form what? An organ. That's where you have what? A liver. If you break your livers into lobes, you will see what? Tissues. Now, when this tissue comes together, they form what? An organ. Your kidney is an what? Organ. Your liver is what? A metabolic organ. Kidney is what? An excretory organ. Okay? Your heart is what? An organ as well. Now, a collection of different organs forms what? A system. You have your digestive system, you have your respiratory system, you have your circulatory system, made up of your heart as pump and then blood vessels. You have your excretory system, which includes the kidney, your skin. We also, which other system do you have in the body? I've mentioned excretory, digestive. I've also mentioned circulatory system as well. Now, when this system now all comes together, they make up what? An organism, a complex what? Organism. Now, specialized cells form specialized functions. Also, in the body, there are what? Cells that are specialized for what? Specific function. Now, example of specialized cells includes your what? Your muscle cells. The muscle cells are also called what? Contractile cells. There are cells that what help perform movements via what? Contraction. You also have what? Your nerve cells. Nerve cells, they help us transmit information in form of what? Electric signals or impulse from one part of your body to what? Another. It's your nerve cells that are responsible for this speech I'm producing now. My brain will stimulate my body, my mouth, and then tells my mouth, this is how you shape, this is how you make this speech. This same what? Nerve cells. Okay, let's not go this deep now. I wanted to explain how your nerve cells can also what? Affect your heart from pumping, sympathetic and parasympathetic. All right, so first of all, we'll be looking at in details this night cell organelles and function. Cell organelles and function. If you have been following our classes, I think sometime last 2 weeks, we talked about cellular organelles. First of all, what is what? A cell organelle. When you hear organelle, what should come to your mind? First of all, when you hear cell, what should come to your mind is what? A unit of life. Now, within this unit of life, there are what? Minor, little what? Factories that help perform some life processes. I showed us that a cell is what? Capable of generating energy. A cell is capable of what? Metabolic activities. This same cell is also most cells is also capable of what? Moving around, movement. So what in this cell performs these what? Various processes. These are little what? Organelles. These are little what? They call it miniature what? factories inside the cell. Now, these things are like localized region where some specific processes occur. Hope you guys are still with me. So we're now looking at organelles that can be found within a cell that helps them to perform specific functions. And what we have here, first of all, in this slide is the what? Nucleus. Now, the nucleus is what? A central placed organelle in most of the cells. It was centrally what? Placed. Most times, some cells are what? Mononuclear. That's they contain one nucleus. Some other cells like skeletal muscle contain what? They are multinucleated. They contain more than what? One nucleus. Some cells like cardiac cells, they are what? Binucleated. They have two nucleus. So what is the function of a what? A nucleus? A nucleus contains a what? DNA. What is the DNA material? DNA is responsible for what? Majorly protein synthesis. It's responsible for what? Information. That's it dictates how the cell what functions. It's what carries the hereditary material of the what cell. So a nucleus contains what hereditary material of the what cell, contains the entire information about that cell called the what DNA. The nucleus also contains what every other cellular activities. I like to picture a nucleus just like most all of us here went through primary school. Now, in your primary schools, their leadership there is not as complex as you can see in secondary school and university. So what we have in primary school is basically what teachers and what headmistress or headmaster. Now, in your primary school, let's just say the headmistress now is your what nucleus. In that school setting, the headmistress sits as what middle of every other activity that goes on in that school. The headmistress can come in the morning now. Probably your teachers came late. Your headmistress will query the teachers. Sometimes the headmistress can what direct what every other thing that happens in that school. I think a better illustration will now be, I don't know, most of us have, if any, most of us has been to an industry or probably somewhere like a factory. Now, if you have been in an industry, you notice that there is someone called the what manager director. Now, the MD is what your nucleus there. In that industry, there are different what places, there are different offices where various what activities take place. Let's use, for example, a car manufacturing industry. Probably in this specific workshop, this is where the engine is produced. In another place, this is where the door is produced. In this place, this is where the gearbox and everything is produced. Now, you can have another place where the what assembly line, where everything is assembled. You can also have the what shipping department that carries the car that has been developed and what takes it outside. You can also have the what sales department and all. Then the MD now sit in the middle of every activity that happen in what that factory. Now, the MD is like the person giving the what commands. The MD can decide between Corolla and Boss, let us produce a Corolla. The MD will now send out the information. Now, when the information gets to what where they will produce the Corolla, the information will also carry which type of Corolla we produced, what's the color of the door, what's the size, how many seats, will it be just 2 seats or will it just be 4? Now, this is the activity that the nucleus what performs inside the cell. As we go forward, I will also explain more. The next cellular organelle we have also that is of big importance is your mitochondria. Most of us know this. If I ask you now, what is a mitochondria? The next thing you tell me is the powerhouse of the what? Cell. So why is it called the powerhouse of the cell? Why? First of all, powerhouse means a place where power is generated, right? Now, the cell utilizes energy in the form of ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Is a form of nucleic acid as well. So the mitochondria is called the what powerhouse of the cell because it is where ATP, which is the energy the cell needs to function, is produced. Hope you all are still with me. If you have any question, please call my attention back, okay? Or if I'm going too fast, you can tell me. Let me slow down a bit. So I was saying the mitochondria is what place where ATP is what synthesized. Synthesis means what? Production as well, creating new things. So when they say the mitochondria is the power of the cell, they are trying to explain that what? ATP synthesis occurs where? In the mitochondria. Now, in this our mini factory, I told all of us to imagine along with me. Let's say we have a place in that factory. First of all, every other thing that happens in a factory needs energy. For the machines to work properly, there must be electricity. Now, in this factory, we have what? Somewhere at the back of the yard, where there is a very big lister. And that lister what? Produces what? Electricity. That lister is something like your what? Mitochondria. So your mitochondria plays the what? Same role as your lister. What does it do? Produce electricity in form of ATP so that the cells can what? Utilize them. Thirdly, we have what is called a ribosome. A ribosome. Now, what is a ribosome? A ribosome is a non-membrane bound organelle. That's it does not have a membrane bound. It's not membrane bound. Is what a non-membrane bound organelle that right for protein synthesis. So the ribosome is where proteins are what produced. All of us know here that what proteins are what very what big important. They help in tissue repair, they help in growth of muscle tissues and all. So where is these proteins produced? In the ribosome. Don't worry, along the class, I'll also tell you probably in weeks to come how this protein is synthesized. The nucleus that contains your DNA from what a particular segment of the DNA called the gene will now decode information for protein synthesis, and we send it out into the cytoplasm to the ribosome. Now, when this information gets to the ribosome, that's the nucleus telling the ribosome, see, this is the kind of material we want, this kind of protein we want. Now, the ribosome will take that information, interpret it, and produce a protein. Let's come back to our factory again. In this our factory where we have our MD, we can have a particular segment of that factory where they produce spare parts. So the nucleus, the MD, now sitting in its office, decides that you want a red colored door. The MD will open his book to find specifics of that red colored door. That book is your DNA. Remember, the nucleus houses the what? Genetic material, right? Which is your DNA. So when it opens the DNA, it sees the instructions for producing that red colored door. It copies that. Are you guys still with me? I'm explaining something very crucial here. Now, your nucleus copies that information from the DNA and writes it in another letter and sends it out. Now, that letter is sent out is what is now called an mRNA, messenger RNA. Now, when you send it out, the mRNA now carries that code, enters another office, part of that industry, called the ribosome, where spare parts are produced. When this mRNA brings information in, the people in charge there reads this code and knows this is the type of red car we need. This is the size we need. This is the weight we need. And now they produce that spare part. Are you with me? And when they produce it, they now send it as well to where it is what needed. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's come back a little. So, first of all, the nucleus what houses genetic materials, which is the what DNA. The mitochondria produces the energy needed. The ribosome produces the what proteins, which I also tell you can also visualize that as what spare part needed in the car industry. Now, firstly, we have what is called the endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum. Now, the endoplasmic reticulum is of two types as well. Now, there is the rough endoplasmic reticulum and there is a smooth endoplasmic reticulum. When you say something is rough, it means that probably that thing kind of like, okay, let's use someone's face. When you say your face is rough now, you can be like the face is studded with what pimples and all. So likewise, the endoplasmic reticulum, the rough endoplasmic reticulum has ribosomes attached to it. So that is why it was rough. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum does not have what anything attached to its surface, so it is called the what smooth. Now, what is the function of the rough endoplasmic reticulum? Number one, protein synthesis. Why? It has ribosomes attached to it. What's the function of smooth endoplasmic reticulum? Since it does not have any ribosomes, what it produces is what? Lipid. Lipid. Okay, let's continue moving further. I will explain all this in details. Hope all of us can see our slide, so things will be easier for us. The next organelle we have here is what? Golgi apparatus, also called the what? Golgi body. The Golgi apparatus, you can also call it the what? The Golgi
Sir, please, the
apparatus
first
is
slide.
responsible.
Please, the first slide. Let me screenshot it, please, sir.
All right. When you're screenshotting, just tell me you're done. Are you done?
No, sir. My network. Oh.
The last slide was sent to you, right?
Pardon?
The last class, the slide for the last class, it was sent, right?
Last class?
Yes, last week, the slide, the presentation was sent to you guys, right?
I didn't see it, though.
No, it wasn't.
All right, this one will be sent, okay? So don't bother screenshotting it. I'll tell your coordinator to send this one.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Right. So the Golgi apparatus does a very important work in the cell. What it does is that it modifies things, it sorts them, and packages them for what distribution. The Golgi apparatus is also called the what post office of the what cell. In a post office, what do? They what bring information together, sort them, and range them for what distribution. So this is the same function of the what Golgi what apparatus. Now, when protein and lipids are being synthesized, they are sent to the Golgi apparatus. Now, the Golgi apparatus now brings the proteins and lipids and then what arranges them properly. It modifies them as necessary. It modifies them, and it's like someone's mic is on or you're on speak out. Hello? Okay, I've stopped hearing myself. All right. So the next organelle we have is the what? Lysosomes. The lysosomes. Now, I want you, when you hear lysosome, what should come to your mind? Digestive enzymes. They're also called the what? Garbage disposal of the what? Cell. Hope you are noting all these things down. I forgot to remind us again. Please bring your pen and your paper. I can mention things that are not in this slide. Most of the things I've been saying so far are not in this slide. Okay. Now, first of all, I told you that the Golgi apparatus is also called the what? Post office of the cell. The lysosome is also called the what? Garbage disposal of the what? Cell. These are questions you can see in OBJ. So why is the lysosomes called the garbage disposal of the cell? They what break down cellular waste. They break down cell what materials. They contain what digestive enzymes that does the degradation. Okay. Now imagine that a cell organelle dies and the cell produces a new cell organelle. Let's say the ribosome that produces protein now gives way and what dies. The what nucleus will send information to synthesize another ribosome. Now this old ribosome, the lysosome will now what come and engulf it and break it down. That's it digests it. Okay. Now the next organelle we have is called the what? It has almost like picture with what? Lysosomes. But while lysosome is responsible for cellular what? Disposal, that's breaking down cell waste, the peroxisome is plays a major role in what? Detoxification. and in fatty acid synthesis. How does it detoxify harmful organisms? We'll look into that in details very soon. There's something called hydrogen peroxide produced by the body. So chemical activity. Peroxide contains an enzyme called oxidase. And this enzyme acts on those things to detoxify them. Now, the next organelle we have is vacuoles. Now, this vacuole is very large in animals and it is smaller in plants. Sorry, it's very large in plants and small in animals. What does it do? It's your storage function. It stores nutrients, water, and waste materials. Lastly, we have the cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is the internal environment of the cell. It is a jelly-like fluid that holds every organelle to Okay, so still on cellular organelles, we also have the cytoskeleton.
Sir.
Cytoskeleton.
Sir, sorry
Hello?
for taking you aback. Yes. The Golgi apparatus, you said that we can also call it what?
You can apparatus. You can also call it the post office of the cell.
Okay. I'm
All
okay.
right. So the next, okay, thank you very much. The next organelle here is the cytoskeleton. Cytoskeleton. First of all, cyto means cell. Skeleton is framework of the body. So the cytoskeleton, you can call it the cellular skeleton. That's what holds the cell together and prevents it from fragmentizing. That's from breaking down. So the cytoskeleton provides structural support to the cell. It also helps in cell movement, cell division, and many other functions within the cell. Just like your skeleton can help you to move about, protect your internal organs, and help you coordinate very well. The same thing is responsibility is something that the cytoskeleton does, but at a cellular level. The next material we have here, next organelle we have here is centrioles. Now, this organelle helps in cell division. But the thing there is that it is found only in animals. It's found only in animals, it's not found in the cell. Now, it is a pair of spherical organelle that is found close to the nucleus. It contains something called microtubules. Now, this microtubules also helps in cell division. The next organelle we have here is not necessarily organelle. The next part of the cell you have is cell membrane. Now, most of us here, if I should ask what is a cell membrane, I'm expecting of us here to give a justifiable answer to this question. The cell membrane is outer covering of the cell. Now, the cell membrane does it provides structure. Sorry, the cell membrane controls the movement of substance in and out of the cell. It is a semi-permeable. Okay, you can write now. The cell membrane is a semi-permeable membrane. You can also call it a semi-permeable phospholipid membrane that controls the movement of substance in and out of the cell. So from this description now, semi-permeable means semi means partly. Permeable means something that can go and come out as well. So when you say the cell membrane is semi-permeable, it means that it allows, it allows the partial passage of some things. How will I better explain this now? When you say something is semi-permeable, that means it kind of like allows some things. Okay, it shows favoritism, that it allows some things to go in and it prevents some other things from moving in. Are you hearing me? So the cell membrane allows some materials to move in while stopping others from going in. Okay. The last organelle we have here is chloroplast. This is found in the plant. So the chloroplast is the green coloring organelle that helps in photosynthesis. Okay, before I go into details to explain the organelles turn by turn, let us do a little comparison between eukaryotic cells and prokaryotic cells. Now, prokaryotic cells, what are prokaryotic cells? And I'm also expecting all of us to know what this is all about right now, if you have been following the class. Prokaryotic. I told us that karyotic there what means nucleus. Karyot means what? Nucleus. Pro means before. So whenever you hear pro, it means what? Before. Primary. That's earliest form of something. You means what? True. Good. That's the Greek word for what? True. Karyotic means what? Cell. So when you talk about prokaryotic cell, these are what? Cells before what? The true formation of nucleus. This is the simplest division you can get from this now. Prokaryotic, that the cell that was formed before what? Nucleus came to place. Eukaryotic cells are what? Cells that have what? True nucleus. So prokaryotic cells are what? Cells that what? Do not have a nucleus. Neither do they have what? A membrane-bound organelle. Example, bacteria, archaebacteria. Eukaryotic cells are cells that have what? Nucleus and membrane-bound organelles. Example, animal cells and what? Plant cells. So prokaryotic cells are what? Always smaller and they are very simple. While eukaryotic cells are what? Much complex and larger. Imagine a cell that has what? Factories inside that perform various processes. These are what? Very complex cells. In prokaryotic cells, most of the things that happens here is via what? Diffusion and simple processes, not as complex as eukaryotic cells. So in prokaryotic cells, the DNA is what? Secular and found in a localized region called the nucleoid. In eukaryotic cell, we have linear DNA, and the DNA is found what? Inside the nucleus. Okay, so let's do one more comparison.
Sir, please repeat this last one.
Which last one?
The DNA in prokaryotic is circular and is found where?
No, the DNA in prokaryotic is secular and is found in a region called the nucleoid. NaOClOEOID, nucleoid. Now, in eukaryotic, the DNA is linear and found in a region called the what? And found inside the what? Nucleus. Have you gotten it?
Yes, sir.
All right. So plant versus animal cell. So let's compare between plant and cells as well. I think someone's microphone is on. Okay. So similarities between plant and animal cell. Both of them what? Nucleus. We are not talking about prokaryotic and eukaryotic now. No, we are talking about plant and animal cells. Taking us back to last 2 weeks, plant and animal cells are also part of what? Eukaryotic cells. So now the eukaryotic cells, the plant and animal cells, both of them have what? Nucleus. Both of them also have what? Endoplasmic reticulum, the Golgi apparatus, mitochondria for energy, ribosome for protein synthesis, the cytoplasm, which is the internal environment, and the plasma membrane. Please take note, plasma membrane also means cellular membrane. In higher classes, I think from your 200 level, they can also call it what? Biphospholipid what? Membrane or biphospholipid layer. Okay, now let's look at the differences between the plant and animal cells. The plant cells contain what is called a cell wall. The animal cell do not have what is. I think I did not mention that cell wall. I didn't mention it. The plant cell also have what is called a chloroplast. The chloroplast helps it to synthesize its own food via photosynthesis. The animal cell they are devoid of chloroplast. The plant cell as well, they have large and central vacuole. Now this helps it to store nutrients and to store up water. The animal cell have smaller vacuoles. The animal cell now has centrioles, while the plant cell lacks this organelle. The animal cell also have lysosome. They have lysosome in abundance. While the animal, I'm too fast.
Yeah, please,
Okay,
you are fast.
all right. You just look at your slide, okay? The point is just self-explanatory. It's opposite, it's just comparison. I was saying the animal cell, they have more lysosomes. Please, someone's mic is on. The animal cell, they have more lysosomes than the what plant cell. Remember, lysosome helps in what detoxification. First of all, the animal cell they undergo lots of cellular processes. Since they lack the chloroplast to derive their own food, they depend so much on breaking down food nutrients that are what engulfed. All these things are what cellular processes. So there are always worn out cell or materials to what break down to degrade. So there is what lysosomes in abundance in what animal cells than in plant cells. So I would love us now in the next like 30 minutes to look at every organelle in much more detail.